have the right to breathe clean air? Without rapid and significant change, the planet is at risk of mass extinction, destroying livelihoods and leaving humanity more vulnerable to disease. Protecting this right is more urgent now than ever before. Since 2015, an unprecedented movement has been sweeping courts around the world. Groups of young plaintiffs, some as young as 7, are suing their governments for their inaction on tackling climate change. For example, in the winter of 2018, 25 young Colombians, including indigenous youths, sued their government for failing to reduce deforestation in the Amazon and falling short on climate promises. This suit, as well as others, argued that destructive environmental policies put the plaintiffs' current and future lives at risk. Climate inaction violates their basic human rights, specifically the right to a healthy environment, health, food, and water. But what do human rights have to do with the environment? Do you have the right to breathe clean air? To live in a world with white rhinos, polar bears, and lemur leaf frogs? What about the right to mangroves and coral reefs? The first international document to outline human rights was adopted by the newly formed United Nations in 1948, against the backdrop of 2 world wars marked by countless atrocities and barbaric acts. This document, known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, describes the inherent freedoms that belong to all people, no matter who they are or where they live, and which can't be granted or revoked. It establishes rights like freedom of thought, political liberties like the right to a fair trial, and socioeconomic and cultural rights like the right to adequate housing and healthcare. While the UDHR itself is non-binding, its formation gave people an internationally recognized set of ethics and standards and laid the foundation for human rights law. And since 1948, these liberties have been woven into international treaties, constitutions, and laws, meaning that countries have opted to uphold and protect them. As a result, countless individual human rights struggles and movements have been granted legitimacy and a legal basis for pursuing justice. The UDHR makes no mention of nature, biodiversity, or climate. These rights instead first took hold at the national level. Many countries within the global south, often influenced by indigenous laws and worldviews, incorporated the right to a healthy environment into their constitutions and regional treaties. Soon, human rights advocates were calling on the rest of the world and the United Nations to recognize this right as well. Many argued that the very principles of the UDHR depend on access to healthy ecosystems. Each year, millions of people die from air and water pollution. Declining pollinator populations threaten basic food security, and the loss of coastal habitats has left millions exposed to greater risks from destructive floods and hurricanes. Protecting this right is more urgent now than ever before. Climate change is causing more frequent heat waves, longer droughts, and more destructive wildfires. Without rapid and significant change, the planet is at risk of mass extinction, which could wipe out a quarter of the world's biodiversity by 2100. Such losses to natural ecosystems would likely have disastrous knock-off effects, further threatening food supplies, destroying livelihoods, and leaving humanity more vulnerable to disease. Thankfully, momentum is building. Today, over 150 countries and jurisdictions have enshrined the right to a healthy environment into national legislation. On April 5, 2018, the Colombian Supreme Court ruled in favor of the young plaintiffs, finding that the government was legally obliged to reduce deforestation and greenhouse gas emissions in order to protect the rights of present and future generations. This case and similar historic wins by young people in the courts of the Netherlands, Germany, and the US has inspired others to take up the cause. As of the summer of 2023, a wave of more than 2,000 human rights-based environmental cases have been filed across the globe, and this number is likely to grow. In 2022, an overwhelming majority of UN General Assembly states came together to keep human rights aligned to a changing world by recognizing the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. It will take unprecedented global cooperation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, stop deforestation, and keep our waterways clean. These court cases are a powerful first step to hold governments accountable and to give future generations a better chance to breathe clean air and live in a world with white rhinos, polar bears, and coral reefs for years to come.